Well, greetings, vinyl community. I know it's been a while since I checked in here. Sorry about that. I have had a hard time getting back into video making mode lately, but today I want to talk about Grails. First, I want to give a shout out to Tone Scott and his great article in Goldmine magazine about us, about the VC. Go to goldminemag.com and check out Tone Scott's article about the vinyl community. Don't go to goldmine.com, or if you do, keep your hand on your wallet. It's goldminemag.com. And Tone Scott has written a nice little piece on the VC with pictures of various representatives, including a certain no good Nick who is in front of this camera right now. Grails. I want to talk about some albums that have been on my want list, or at least on my radar, and have popped up since the last time I talked to you. I've had some very good fortune with that. In particular, this album that's been high on my want list for years. The reason for this particular album was I saw it mentioned some years ago when I read Frank Kofsky's book, Black Nationalism and the Revolution in Music. And in a footnote, he refers to any of the following recordings: Coltrane Ascension, Coleman Free Jazz, Taylor, The World of Cecil Taylor, Sun Ra, The Heliocentric Worlds of Sun Ra, Archie Shepp, On This Night, Roswell Rudd, John Chikai, New York Art Quartet, Bobby Hutcherson Dialogue, Albert Eiler Bells. Now, for this album to be in that company, I thought it's one I had to have, and it was an album I hadn't heard, and it was Bobby Hutcherson Dialogue. And I got this off of eBay. I bid on this album many times in the past on eBay and always been outbid, and this time it just turned out to be my turn. I got this for a very reasonable price. It's not a first pressing. It's the blue label with the black B, but still, I got it for about half of what my maximum bid was. So, just no late last-minute bidders to take it away from me. This is really not as free and as avant-garde as most of those other albums that were listed in Kofsky's book, but it's a great thing. Bobby Hutcherson's on Blue Note. How can you go wrong? He's accompanied here by Freddie Hubbard on trumpet, Sam Rivers on tenor and soprano, bass clarinet and flute, Bobby Hutcherson playing vibes and marimba, Andrew Hill on piano, Richard Davis on bass, and Joe Chambers on drums. And with Freddie Hubbard and Andrew Hill and Richard Davis and Bobby Hutcherson, you know it's got a kind of link to that Out to Lunch DNA and that Andrew Hill album that featured a lot of these same personnel. So very, very glad to add that one to my collection. As with this album, this is an album that I've been very much on the lookout for, along with the other album that goes along with it, Alice Coltrane, Ta the El Daoud, and the other album I was referring to was the Journey in Satchidananda. But this album, I'm aware that it goes for crazy sums nowadays, but this copy, as you can see, is not in the greatest condition. It's not even easy to see that it's got tape on it. It's got somebody's name. Yeah, there's the tape along the top. It's got somebody's name written, and written on the labels as well in there, but still, it's a fine copy of the album in that it plays well, it plays through, it's got some noise on it, the cover is pretty beat, but the it's this album. It's the one that I've really, really wanted for a long time and not been able to find at a reasonable price. And this was a much more than reasonable price. The record store owner at first didn't even want to sell it because of the condition, but I talked him into it and he gave me a very low price on it. So I'm delighted to get this album, a true classic of spiritual jazz, featuring, of course, the late Pharoah Sanders, very sadly missed fixture in the free and spiritual jazz scene, as well as Alice Coltrane and Pharoah Sanders. It has Joe Henderson on tenor and tenor sax and alto flute, Ron Carter on bass, and Ben Riley on drums. Classic album, and I'm so happy to have that in my collection. Also from the Impulse label, found this one at a record show recently, Michael White's Spirit Dance. 1972, very nice album of a more accessible but still spiritual jazz. Michael White is accompanied by Ed Kelly on piano, Ray Drummond on bass, and Baba Omsen on percussion, as well as bamboo flute and vocal. And percussion is hand percussion, like tablas and congas. So having that in place of a drummer in the jazz combo gives it a very distinctive feel, as well as, of course, having the violin as the lead instrument, which makes it distinctive enough. This is maybe not for you if you really insist on hearing the violin played precisely in tune, but I think that Michael White's imagination makes up for any little lapses in intonation. The traditional Impulse gatefold cover there. Very nice copy. As I say, I got this one at a record show. And it's another one I've been on the lookout for quite a while. This one I didn't actually have written down. I had another one by this artist that I was looking for as sort of the number one want item that I was going to find before proceeding on to this, but this one really should have been right up there. Roy Harper, great English folk institution. Amazing singer-songwriter and guitarist. A heavy inspiration to Jethro Tull's Ian Anderson. And on this album, I think that probably comes through the most of any of Roy Harper's albums. A lot of this really sounds like it could have been part of the sketches for something on the order of a Passion Play or Aqualung. This has this is a British copy, and it has the life mask. It's Roy Harper life mask. I don't think I even said the title yet. It has the center fold, center cut cover that's very difficult to find in decent condition, and this is not in perfect condition. It's a bit soiled and a little rumpled, but hey, it's been well loved, and deservedly so. A great album, including the epic side-long The Lord's Prayer, which, again, it's like Roy Harper's equivalent of a Thick as a Brick or a Passion Play. But he did this in 1972, was it? I should do my research first. No, 1973. So very much along that time that the prog epics were happening, and here we get one in an acoustic folk vein. And these guys have become a little tricky to find. Their albums have suddenly gone up in demand after the Netflix movie came out recently. And of course I'm talking about Sparks. But this is one I've wanted to welcome back in my collection for quite some time, and I ran across a copy for almost nothing. I paid $4 for this album. Not perfect copy again. It's got the original inner sleeve with the lyrics, the water skiing Palm Tree Island label, and it is my favorite album of Sparks. It's the one that introduced me to Sparks. Just an absolutely amazing pop music masterpiece. And again, one that I'm very, very happy to welcome into my collection. The next Grail is an album that you see a lot with a different cover, but I just had it set in my mind that I wanted the original cover, even though the replacement cover is really objectively a lot better than this. Miles Davis, Jack Johnson. Wonderful album of Miles' early 70s, very funky jazz with incredible guitar. We've got contributions on guitar from John McLaughlin and Sonny Sharrock. And the iconic bit of dialogue from Jack Johnson himself, or at least the movie portrayal of him at the end of one of the tracks. 2 sidelong tracks, Right Off and Yesternow. Now, most of the copies you'll see have the photo of Miles Davis with an arched back blowing the trumpet and just looking ultra cool. And that is a great cover, but this cover, just because this was the cover that I saw when I first became aware of the album, I saw it reviewed in Rolling Stone magazine the summer of 1971, and this image just stuck with me, and that's what I wanted on a copy of this album. Okay, I thought I might get through this with no edits, but my camera battery had other ideas, so let's start again talking about... this album is not such a rarity as some of those others that I've shown today, but it's one I've really had my eye out for and would really enjoy talking about. And it is the first solo album from John Entwistle of the Orrible Ooh, Smash Your Head Against the Wall from 1971. There we see Mr. Entwistle's pooch with his favorite doggy toy, and some of the interesting anatomical imagery that he gives us on, as befits an album that's full of his macabre sense of humor. This album came out around the same time as Who's Next, and my wife could easily have fit on this album. It's got that same dark humor to it. This album opens up with the blazing hard rock proto-metal of My Size, which contains the title track. It includes a version of Heaven and Hell, which had previously been done. It was sort of a set opening staple for a while by The Who. Entwistle, for his own personal version, slows it down quite a bit compared to The Who's version, and adds a lot of horns and makes very majestic arrangement. Delightful album. I got this one for Christmas in 1971, and appropriately enough, the album ends with a sing-along of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in the song I Believe in Everything. So, that's it for me today. Thank you very much for watching. Be well. Go to my Bandcamp and buy Hurtle Turtle Out of Heaven. Buy 5 or 6 copies and hand them out to your friends. Buy all my other albums. Bye. Bye-bye.